Alright guys, I'm going to give you a full guide on how to lock in, okay? This is episode 6 of getting to 10k a month. Now, I might sound really tired right now, and it's because I am. It's almost 11:30 p.m. I'm recording this video, and I want to talk about a few things that will help you lock in. So, number 1 is fix your social circle, okay? One of the most important things is to have the right friends. You don't want to go partying out on Saturdays and getting drunk because it's not fun. Okay? It's not nearly as fun as people make it out to be. And one of the things that you can do to improve is improving your social circle, right? Getting the right friends, just getting the right friends, knowing the right people. And next up is attached to that is your family actually. Um, Now you might say like, "Oh, I don't want to ditch my family." I'm not telling you to ditch your family, but you have to be aware of what your family thinks as well. For example, your parents probably grew up in a very different time than you did. Maybe before the internet came out, right? So, um, one thing is to understand their perspective, but at the same time, understand that, they lived in a world without internet, so online money seems really fucking ridiculous to them. Fair enough. And you have to understand that even if they think it's impossible, you still have to think it's possible, right? You still have to believe, right? Oh, I actually forgot a point about the friends part, and it is yes, not only avoid people that are bad for you, but if you do know people who are bad for you, or you have friends that are bad, like who are not aligned with the life that you want to live, let's say, right? Then you just have to cut them out. You have to be ruthless about it. Okay? Um, it is sometimes really hard to do so. And sometimes they're actually the closest people to you. But you still have to do it anyways. Because otherwise, how are you going to live the life that you want? Because they're kind of like an anchor. You're like a ship and they're the anchor. And if you don't take it out, then you're never going to be able to move. Simple. So, now we've talked about friends and family. Let's talk about diet, okay? So, what people don't understand is intermittent fasting is underrated, okay? Factually, objectively, okay? You know, People who eat fucking 3 to 5 meals a day, like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, I'm trying to bulk, bro. Like, okay, but, like, if you're trying to lock in for business as well, if you're on, like, if you got brain fog 24/7, it's probably because you're eating carbohydrates 24/7. Of course, it will be tiring. You're digesting food 24/7. Like, don't you think that would affect up here? Your blood's going to your stomach, not your head. There'll be problems with that. So, diet is important. I'm not going to tell you what diet to go on, but all I'll say is eat clean, okay? Um, I'll tell you what not to eat. Don't eat McDonald's, don't eat junk food, okay? Don't eat excessive amounts of carbs because they cook your head really. Um, and don't consume too much sugar, don't consume artificial chemicals, preservatives. Preservatives, exactly. They preserve shelf life, but they're not good for your fucking body, right? Artificial colors, preservatives, artificial ingredients, yada yada yada. You know what I mean, okay? You already know it. It's common sense, okay? So, um, now that we've talked about diet, I want to talk more about your actual schedule, okay? Now, one of the things you want to do on the mindset component is vision clarity, basically, which is basically just knowing exactly what you want to do. Now, for some reason, like, people will lock in, but they don't know what they actually want to do, and it's really fucking dumb, right? And what they end up doing is just that they waste all their time, right? They end up wasting all their time, and because they don't know what to do. So knowing what to do is very important. Now, our second step is basically reverse engineering, right? It's like knowing what to do, but more specifically, more specific. So knowing what to do every day, right? Your daily tasks, right? What task might be, what tasks might be quote unquote non-negotiable, so they have to be habits, right? What tasks are like one time or like weekly or things like that, right? Knowing what to do, and yeah. Third of all is schedule, right? Knowing when to do it, basically. Am I they have a big thing called eating the frog. So you wake up in the morning and you do the hardest thing, right? So for me, it might be recording content. It could be cold DMs. It could be building the program, right? Things like that. Um, yeah, and it could be a myriad of things for different people, and knowing when to do it's also really important, because when the time comes, you're like, oh, time to do this, instead of like you see it and you're like, oh, I want to break, so I'm gonna go break instead, right? People who have a lot of quote unquote time freedom, right, basically a super duper flexible timetable, they end up not actually doing as much as they want to, because they don't really have the incentive. That's probably the best way to say. Okay? And speaking of incentives, you need an incentive to lock in, because locking in is, at some stages, it is fucking horrendous. Okay? There are times where you have to enter quote unquote monk mode, right? And I would say there are times where I haven't, I don't speak to people outside of my family for weeks, literal weeks, okay? And oh my god, that is nightmarish. It is horrible. Okay, you like don't really know how to talk to a human being after that. And it's so weird, right? You overthink every single conversation. You overthink every single interaction with every single human being, and it just sucks. Okay, so you need to have an incentive to do it, and the best type of incentive is actually incentive by pain, right? The fear of what will happen if you don't do it. That's extremely strong. Now, um, let's see if there's anything else to cover. Focus and singularity. That's something I wanted to talk about. Um, try not to have 20 tabs. Try not to multitask. Try not to have 15 different hobbies while you're in your lock-in period. Try not to talk to your girlfriend every 3 minutes, right? Go ahead, like if you have a girlfriend, you have to quote unquote lock in, right? The thing is, like, what people get wrong about locking in is that they think it means 16-hour work days, right? But I think locking in, right, and I assume having a season of your life that is oriented to growth, right? You could still have relationships, right? Because what I found is that, you know, you can have a season oriented to growth by growing your entire self, health, wealth, and relationships, instead of just wealth. The thing about concentrating on one part, instead of all three, is that the other two fall behind, and then this one diminishes because the other two fell behind. So I think what people misunderstand about locking in is that locking in is specifically about money. And I don't think that's true. I think locking in specifically means just growing yourself, really, becoming a better person and so on and so forth. And when you do that, all of you grow, and exponentially so. And a period of perhaps not locking in could mean, partying. And, there's such a big fucking culture against partying, right? And I say that because I used to be part of it. And, yeah, I don't like drinking. I still hate it, to be honest. Mostly because it tastes like shit. Um, I mainly don't like partying. I guess I'm kind of introverted. And, but at the same time, like, I do enjoy having fun 100%. So, yeah, like locking in and not locking in. I think at the end of the day, what you have to understand, right, is that, you know, this is something that Charlie Morgan said, which I thought was actually really wrong. It's that locking in is not always about money. That's what I think everyone should understand, I think people should have some hobbies, even if they're in a period of growth, so to speak, okay? Because the thing about growing is that you're not growing one part and diminishing another, because you wouldn't be winning overall. Growing is about growing every single part of you, health, wealth, and relationships, right? Now, yes, you might prioritize some parts over others, but at the same time, even if you're out of balance, so to speak, there has to be some degree of balance. Because if you have absolutely no balance, you're gonna get mentally, you're gonna get fucked over. And I say that because I've experienced it and it is horrible. So if you want to lock in, diet, friends, so on and so forth, focus, but most importantly, understanding that to lock in is to actually grow every single part of you, because you'll be so much happier doing it. You'll be so much more fulfilled in life if you actually aspire more than just having material wealth. So, yeah, that's it. See you guys soon. I should be back in China by the time I make my next video. Bye bye.